Congratulations, you're engaged. Now you've started to plan your wedding, but you feel a little bit lost. Hi, I'm Miriam, and I am the owner of Scout and Grace Events, and I love this podcast. This is Confessions of a Wedding Planner, and I am going to walk you through the ins and outs of planning a wedding without a planner. So let's get started and start chatting today about how do you plan a wedding without a planner. Now, before we get started, I want to talk to you about the importance of having at least a wedding coordinator, which is someone that's going to come on at the very end of the planning. So they're going to come on about 30 days to 90 days, somewhere during that time slot before the wedding day. And I'm going to tell you right now, you need a coordinator, not the venue manager, not your mom, not your sister, not your best friend that planned her own wedding. You need to hire a professional wedding coordinator. Now, this podcast is going to walk you through how to plan a wedding, but not how to coordinate a wedding. That's completely different. So I'm going to talk to you about the steps leading up to that coordination time. I'm going to encourage you to hire a coordinator because you need one. It's very, very important, but that's another conversation for another day, and we'll chat about that later. So today we're going to talk about getting you planned. So this is going to be from engagement to about a month or two before your wedding. We're going to talk about all the ins and outs, how to find your vendors, how to make sure you're not overwhelmed, and just how to narrow it down. So first and foremost, again, my name is Miriam. I've been planning weddings since 2001, and I'm here to help you and take the overwhelm away from planning a wedding without hiring a full-service wedding planner. So today we're going to talk about the 3 stages that we break up our planning, our weddings into. So the first stage is the planning phase. Second phase is going to be the design phase. Third phase is going to be production. So those 3 phases, if you break it down into those 3 steps, it will help you alleviate that overwhelm. So let's chat about that. So the first step, planning. It's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to walk through planning. Before we get started with hiring anyone, before we find a venue, we want to make sure that you have a budget together, and we want to make sure that you have a guest list together. Those 2 things are super important because you can't go venue shopping if you don't know how many guests you're going to have. You can't go venue shopping if you don't have a budget. And let's speak to that really quickly, because the first thing that everyone does when they get engaged is they announce it to the world, and then they start looking for venues. And what happens there? Mom and dad tell them, okay, we're going to give you $50,000 for your wedding. And you're thinking, wow, that's a huge amount of money to spend on a wedding. I'm going to have a great wedding. Because, let's face it, the Knot and other wedding websites tell you that the average wedding in 2025 cost you like $36,000. Let's chat about that. It's not completely accurate. That is taking the overall budgets of everyone. That's people that are getting married in their backyard. That's people that are going off and eloping at the courthouse. That's people that are spending $150,000. That's people spending $2 million on their wedding. They're taking the average of everyone. Now, I'm not saying the $36,000 is not the average of everyone because I don't know. I live in a major city. So I know Dallas-Fort Worth market. I know Charlotte, North Carolina market. I know Western North Carolina mountains market. I can't speak to the market in Nevada. I can't speak to the market in Montana. I don't know what people are charging out there. But in your major metropolitan cities, you're going to be looking at least $800 wedding guest for your budget. This is going to get you a basic wedding. Now, I'm not saying that you can't go and elope. I'm not saying that you can't get married in your backyard. Yes, even in these metropolitan areas, you can still get married there. You can still be on a lesser budget. But we're going to speak to the average wedding cost in like Charlotte, North Carolina. You're going to look to spend at least $800 wedding guest. So first and foremost, you need to work on cutting your wedding guest list. That will save you money right then and there. You don't need to invite your third cousin that you haven't seen since you were 5. You just don't. You don't need to invite that high school friend that you haven't talked to in years, but you just feel obligated because you're still friends with them on Facebook. Let's chat about really focusing in on who's important to you, who needs to be there that day. Now, I'm not saying cut everyone and just have 20 people. No, that's not what I'm saying. I believe it is so important that you have all the people there that you love and that are important to you. It is so important to have them in pictures, to have those dances, to have those memories built. That's what this is about. But I'm going to talk to you about cutting down that guest count to get the budget down. So let's talk about the venue, because let's track back to that. That's what we started talking about. So many people decide, okay, I have this $50,000 my parents are giving me, and this venue is charging $15,000, and then they have a food and beverage minimum of like $15,000. That's $30,000. I can afford that. Let's do it. So what couples do is they sign that contract, they get booked into that venue, and then they reach out to a planner and start going over the budget and trying to decide, how am I going to spend that last $20,000? Well, I'm here to tell you, if you do that, you are officially venue poor, because you did not have the budget for that price of a venue. Now, going into the beginning, you think, yeah, I can definitely cover that. I mean, certainly $20,000 left over for everything else is going to be plenty. It's not. So it's important that you have a realistic view of the numbers from the very, very, very beginning. That means if you're hiring a full service planner, hire them before you go to choose your venue. If you can't afford a full service planner and that's why you're here, well, great. This is what I'm going to walk you through. We're going to chat about that now. So how can you make sure that you're not venue poor? You need to do lots of research in your area. That means reach out to these venues, ask them how much they're charging, figure out how much the overall wedding budget in your area is. You can't just Google it, because Google's going to lie to you. You have to ask professionals. You have to ask your friends and family members that just got married. Ask them. Say, I'm not trying to be nosy. I just need to come up with a realistic budget. I'm trying to come up with realistic numbers. Can you tell me what your overall spend was? That's going to be how you can find out how much you can expect to spend. That's how you're going to find out what you're comfortable with spending. That's what you're going to find out how truthful that budget amount is. Again, don't Google it. That's going to be a waste of time. Tell your parents don't Google it, because they're going to say, well, the $36,000 is what the national average is, so we're going to give you $50,000 and that should cover everything and you can have all the bells and whistles. It's not entirely true. So do your research. You can ask friends and family. Again, ask wedding professionals. Really get a good understanding. Here recently, I've even seen some venues put out information on what an actual budget you can see it. They literally put it on their website, so you can actually see like a mock-up budget of how much you can expect to spend with them, with a photographer, with a planner, with a coordinator, whatever you're going to do. And it really breaks it down for basic numbers. It's not always exact. Yes, you can spend less. Yes, you can spend more. Just like buying a house. When you buy a house, you can either look at buying a cookie-cutter home that's a 3-bedroom, 2,000 square foot home, or you can look at buying a custom home on 10 acres that has, a swimming pool and 14 barns and horse arenas and all the things. So it's up to you. You've got to do the research to understand that those two different houses are going to be extremely different in costs. Same with weddings. You've got to figure out what type of wedding you want. Figure out what the going rate for that wedding is in your area. And then you can decide if that venue is going to work for your budget or not. We don't want to be venue poor. Okay, so first things first, create a budget, create a guest list, then you can start reaching out to venues. So before you reach out to the venues, though, I want you to take a step back and think about what style of wedding you want. Is it going to be a venue that is very cool and eclectic, like in a museum or an art gallery? Is it going to be something really fun in your downtown area that is really like industrial? Is it going to be something out in the country that's more like a historical home? Think about what your vibe is going to be for your wedding. And then that helps you narrow it down a little bit more. And you can start searching those type of venues to get you into the right style. So once you pick your venue, then you start doing other research. And we're going to break down the process of which vendors to book in what order. So that first planning phase that we talked about in the 3 phases of planning, the first one is planning. And that's where we are going to create your budget, you're going to create your guest count, you're going to book your venue, you're going to start booking the major vendors. Major vendors are going to be your venue, your catering, bartending, it's going to be hair and makeup, it's going to be anything that you need to facilitate this day. The next stage is going to be broken down into design. The design stage needs to happen about 10 months before your wedding. And during this stage, what you need to focus on is booking all of your design vendors. That's going to be your florist, your cake vendor, because it's part of the design. You have to have an idea of what you want that cake to look like. It's going to be your rental company. So if you're building a venue from scratch, that might be in a different order. So let's say you're getting married in your backyard or your parents' home on their estate and you want to have a big tent brought in. That's going to be a different type of conversation we're having. But today we're talking about having a wedding at a venue. Second stage, like I said, is going to be your design. We're going to create a mood board. I know you've been pinning lots of pictures on Pinterest. I want you to put those ideas down on one board. Create a mood board with your favorite photos so you can see if everything blends really well. Search Instagram, search Pinterest, Google things, get lots of ideas, but make sure that you put it on one cohesive board so it flows very well together and it's very cohesive. Now, once you have that vision board together, it's going to be easier for you to make an appointment at a rental company. It's going to be easier for you to schedule that consultation call with that florist. Until you have that idea of what your design is going to be, it's very difficult for you to just reach out to a florist and say, I'm getting married on such and such date and I need to talk to you about providing service. First thing they're going to ask you is, how much are you willing to spend on your floral? You've never done this before, so you have no idea. But I can guarantee you, all the pictures that you're pinning, all the pictures that you're seeing on Instagram, those are not your average wedding that falls within $36,000 budget. It's not. Those are going to be your more high-end weddings, your lovely weddings, or your even premium luxury weddings. So you need to keep that in mind as well. So when creating a budget for your floral cost, it's important to think of what is most important to you. Is it important that you have giant arrangements on every table? Or is it more important for you to have one big ceiling installation and the tables can have smaller arrangements, maybe even bud bases and some candles? Think through those things because that's going to help you to keep that budget lower. Now, if you want to have ceremony flowers, we always suggest that you repurpose those. That's a great way to save on the budget as well. Take some meadows from your aisle and then we'll replace those after the ceremony and put them maybe around the band, place them around the cake, place them around the sweetheart table. There's lots and lots of ideas there. But that's a great way to repurpose and save a little bit on your money. But going back, when you're first reaching out to your florist, it's going to be very difficult to just reach out because some florists have $15,000 minimum. Some florists have a $4,000 minimum. Some florists have a $50,000 minimum. Just depends on the style of weddings that they normally produce. So you need to make sure that you have some sort of idea of what you want for your wedding day. Go ahead and jot down how many bridesmaids bouquets you're going to need. Jot down how many boutonnieres you'll need, how many corsages, how many tables you think you're going to have for guests, what those tables are going to look like. Are they going to be long or are they going to be round tables? Are they going to be a mixture of both? All of these ideas you need to put down on paper so you can have that ready for the florist call. Also, you need to have a good idea of what you're wanting to spend. And again, this is hard because you've never planned a wedding before, so you don't have no idea how much florals actually cost. So I want you to have a realistic idea. Say, oh, I know that you are starting an $8,000 minimum florist pay, and I want to stick with somewhere around there. I want to stick with spending no more than 10. That's a great starting point for them. They will be able to really keep you on track of what to spend and what not to spend. They'll give you ideas of how to save a little bit money here, how we can repurpose flowers here, and they'll just help you walk through it. If you go in having no idea, having no vision for the day, then it's going to be a very difficult conversation. So make sure you're really prepped for that. Also, for the rentals, the same thing goes. So if you start off by just walking into the rental company without having an overall idea, you're going to be lost. You need to have that vision board of what your ideas are, because there's different styles. That same thing goes with the different styles of rentals you can choose from. So you can have more traditional, you can have very modern pieces. So really make sure that you have a vision before you walk in there so you can have a cohesive idea. Once we have a vision board put together, a mood board for a wedding, it's really easy to walk into the rental showroom and just piece together, I love this floral design style of a linen. I definitely want to have that on my tables. Or I just want a plain white linen. I want it to have a very fun, thick texture. Your rental person is going to help you, but they're going to love you for you knowing exactly what you want. They're going to lead you in the right direction, but you'll have a direction to go in. So make sure you're doing that design board, not just a Pinterest board. Make an actual vision board with your favorite pictures to make sure it's cohesive and it's easy for you to put this design together and just pull all the ideas together. Now, the last phase of planning is called production, and that's exactly what it is. We go into the production of the actual day. So all your vendors are booked, all of the design, rentals are booked, florist is booked, everyone knows what they're coming in to do. Contracts are signed, agreements are made, deposits are made. Production is where you're paying all of the final payments. We are doing all of the logistics, so putting together timelines, putting together floor plans. This is when you hire, well, you should have already hired your coordinator, but this is when your wedding coordinator comes into play and starts working with you and provides that wedding management for you. They'll come in and they're the ones that are going to reach out to all of your vendors. They're going to read through those contracts that you have with those vendors to make sure those vendors are providing exactly what they're contracted for. They're going to help you put together a timeline for the entire wedding weekend. They're going to put together floor plans, and they're just going to be there to produce this event that you've planned. Then we fast forward to rehearsal. We love having a coordinator on hand so that coordinator can run and direct your wedding guests on where to stand, where to sit. That way there's no questions. And then, of course, wedding day. Your planner, your coordinator is going to be on site that day to manage your vendor team, oversee that timeline, and oversee all of the little details, those minute details that you probably have forgotten about. But again, that's another conversation for another day, and we'll dive deep into all of those little details. I hope this podcast and this episode was very helpful for you and that it breaks down those 3 stages of planning. I hope you're not feeling overwhelmed. I hope you can walk away from this episode and say, I'm really empowered. I know what to do. I know the steps to take now. And just stay tuned because more episodes are going to follow with different ideas. We're going to dive deep into budgets. We're going to dive deep into production. We're going to dive deep into design. All of these things just to walk you through and help you throughout this planning process. But before I let you go, I just want to remind you that above all else, remember that this day is not about outdoing someone else's wedding. It's not about making it Pinterest board worthy. This day is about the 2 of you coming together, 2 best friends coming together, getting married, and becoming one, starting a new family. Remember that. As long as you remember at the end of this day, you're going to be married to your best friend, nothing can go wrong. All right, until next time, bye-bye.